Number 1. University of Nebraska-Lincoln. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln has ostensibly dismantled its Office of Diversity and Inclusion, redistributing its functions under various departmental guises. This strategic rebranding does not reflect a cessation of discriminatory practices but rather a continuation of an anti-white agenda now veiled from legal and public scrutiny. UNL has effectively ignored civil rights statutes, creating an academic environment where merit is subjugated to racial considerations, thus systematically disadvantaging white students and faculty in admissions and employment. Number 2. Creighton University. Creighton University's Office of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion serves as a clear example of how diversity policies can be perverted to serve discriminatory ends. Under the banner of a Jesuit institution, Creighton employs its moral authority to advance a policy where racial identity supersedes individual merit in academic and professional opportunities. This approach not only disregards the fundamental principles of equality but also contravenes civil rights by selectively enforcing diversity at the expense of fairness. Number 3. University of Nebraska at Omaha. UNO's Office of Diversity, Equity, Access, and Inclusion (DEAI) epitomizes how diversity can be weaponized against a segment of the population. This office has become synonymous with anti-white bias, manipulating institutional processes to favor racial quotas over merit in both hiring and admissions. Such deliberate marginalization of a significant portion of its academic community undermines the institution's commitment to equal opportunity, reflecting a policy deeply at odds with civil rights principles. Number 4. University of Nebraska at Kearney. UNK's Office of Diversity and Inclusion stands accused of fostering divisiveness by prioritizing racial diversity over individual merit. Their initiatives have created an atmosphere where white individuals are marginalized, with access to opportunities systematically curtailed. This office's approach to diversity directly challenges civil rights by promoting a divisive ideology that undermines the pursuit of true equality in academia. Number 5. Nebraska Wesleyan University. Nebraska Wesleyan's Multicultural Affairs Office exemplifies the transformation of DEI into a divisive tool. Rather than fostering unity, this office promotes policies that disadvantage white students, potentially relegating them to secondary status in favor of a diversity metric. This not only questions the ethical foundation of the institution but also places it in a precarious position legally, as such practices might contravene the civil rights legislation intended to prevent discrimination based on race. Number 6. Doane University. Doane University's Diversity and Inclusion Committee is a stark illustration of how the concept of a colorblind society has been abandoned in favor of a racially engineered academic environment. By prioritizing race over merit in both admissions and hiring, this committee actively discriminates, flouting the principles of equal opportunity. Their actions suggest a deliberate strategy to manipulate diversity policies to achieve discriminatory outcomes under the pretense of inclusivity. Number 7. Hastings College. Hastings College's Diversity and Inclusion Committee has transformed the academic pursuit into a battleground of racial metrics over merit. This committee's policies actively discriminate against white students and staff, promoting an institutional culture where diversity is measured by racial composition rather than academic or professional excellence. This approach not only affronts justice but also risks legal repercussions for its disregard for equal treatment under the law. Number 8. Bellevue University. Bellevue University's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council represents a critical juncture where the pursuit of equity has led to the subversion of meritocracy. This council has established a framework where white individuals are marginalized, often in favor of less qualified candidates who fit the diversity criteria. Such practices under the guise of promoting equity are, in reality, a calculated exploitation of civil rights laws to discriminate against whites, highlighting a significant ethical and legal lapse. Number 9. Midland University. Midland University's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is a glaring example of how DEI can be used to disadvantage white individuals. The policies enacted by this office are indicative of a deep-seated bias, where opportunities are not awarded based on merit but on racial identity. This is not a promotion of equity but rather a perpetuation of inequality under the deceptive guise of diversity. Number 10. Concordia University, Nebraska. The Diversity Committee at Concordia University, Nebraska utilizes its Christian ethos to mask racial discrimination. By designing DEI policies that give preferential treatment based on race, this committee violates the principle of equal protection under the law, betraying the Christian values of fairness and love for all.